Yeah, appreciate everybody being here and excited about 2 home games this week. SMU, Tulane. Of course, starting with SMU, a team that we've played before. This will be the first time this year that we've played somebody for the second time. Gives us an opportunity to work on the things that ailed us the first time around and continue to get better. We feel like we're getting better. We haven't pushed through and finished off that game just yet, but we feel like we are getting better in moments. And these are the things that we want to keep focusing on: improvement, readiness for the opportunities in front of us, and then taking advantage of those opportunities.
Questions? Kelly?
Your Saturday opponent, you played them already, right? Is that
Yes.
right? Gosh, it's really hard to get straight. What does your approach change at all when it's a team that do you like having another opportunity to play a team that beat you?
I do. I mean, I think it's one, you're able to review the game tape from the first time around and clearly see things that we were doing then that we're currently doing, what was working, what didn't work. Teams change some throughout the season over the course of a few weeks, but then there's some things that don't change. Personnel, tendencies, things like that. It was another game that we had where we played very good basketball for a number of minutes and did some really nice things. And then we, especially in that SMU game, they got really hot and uncharacteristically hot from 3, and we can't let that happen on Wednesday.
Do you see, looking back at how you guys played in that game, do you see the growth even from a couple weeks ago that maybe you guys don't do some of those same things?
Seen a good bit of growth. The last week, I thought we put 2 halves together. They just unfortunately were in 2 different games. The second half against Temple and the first half against Wichita State. We showed that we have the ability to defend. We showed we have the ability in long stretches to take care of the basketball. We need to do that more. And then we have to be resilient when adversity strikes. We did that in the Temple game last week where we got off to a poor start, but found ourselves back in the game. We didn't just lay down and let it happen. We've got to do a better job once we had a lead at Wichita State of being able to withstand their run. But I do feel that we've gotten better. I think some of our young guys, you can see some maturity in them and some small segments that's got to grow as well.
I know you're a big analytics guy, and you maybe just answered that question for me, but is there anything analytically you can look at and point to, this is a reason why we haven't been able to finish out games maybe in the second half? You've talked about finishing being a priority. So is there anything analytically, I guess, you can point to?
Yeah, I think, TJ, the number one thing is we got to take care of the basketball better. We need, for us, with our style or just the nature of any game. You think about these football playoff games, basketball. You got to take care of the basketball. And in the second half at Wichita State, we turned it over too much and we gave them way too many transition baskets. And the number of times they were able to shoot it around the basket, there's more opportunities for us to foul them. And then they got to the free throw line. So the number one thing we've got to do is take care of the basketball. And that's an easy thing for anybody to see, but statistically, we turned over 23% of the time. We need to be closer to 15, 16% in games.
You mentioned you're seeing that improvement, which is obviously the right thing and the good thing to be seeing. Is it hard to preach that to the guys when they're not seeing wins coming from that improvement? Does that make sense? Is it a hard thing to sell them on, like, hey guys, you are getting better? I know the results maybe aren't showing that. Perhaps?
Yeah, I think over course of a career, it's also hard after you win because sometimes the euphoria lasts too long and players will think, hey, no, coach, we're good. What are you talking about? So it goes in both directions. And that's what we've talked from the very moment we arrived is stacking good days, being everyday guys, and being just completely focused on improvement, whether we've won, whether we've lost, whether you're playing a lot, whether you're not. This is all about getting better. But without a doubt, we'd love to see the fruits of the labor come with a win. We're just going to keep chopping away at this thing.
What would you say the morale level of the team is now, the players?
I think there's of course, be all kidding ourselves if there wasn't disappointment and some frustration. But if there wasn't, I'd be disappointed we're invested, all of us. We're putting everything we've got into this thing. Was very pleased with our guys' response yesterday to a very direct and pointed film session, because it's one thing to get beat. It's another thing to beat yourselves. And there's a very clear distinction there. I thought that we give great credit to Wichita State, but there were some things that I thought we beat ourselves, and we come unraveled a little bit. And that's the things that we've got to focus on the most. But I thought then once we got on the practice floor, they were dialed in, and was very pleased with their performance yesterday in practice.
And how confident are you that once you get that first win, once you break through, that it can really build on something?
Well, I'm confident that we're going to keep getting better, and that's where our focus is at. Of course, we're in the business of trying to win basketball games at a high level in a high-level conference. But I think just from over time with any young people, you gain experience from doing. You gain experience from negatives, from positives, and of course the positive experience of winning a basketball game and pushing through. I think we could absolutely grow from in a big way.
Coach, what would you define success right now for your guys' team this season? Because I know it's not the season that you wanted to play, so what would you define success, later in the year?
Well, we look at a number of different markers for our team, Dan. Like, for example, we'll take pictures of guys' bodies at the beginning of the year and then take pictures at the end of the year and see how they've improved. We have statistical markers. We want to feel the improvement of each guy. We've got a number of guys that are playing minutes at the Division I level, extended minutes, important minutes for the very first time. We knew that there was going to be some transition in that. So we're just looking for improvement in a number of different measures: physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, team spirit, and we want to see that improvement come with wins. And that's what we're still very much focused on. But there are some things, I think about a guy like Charles Chukwu. I think everybody would agree he has improved dramatically. If you saw him in June and some of the things that he's doing, he's improving greatly. And we're focused on that to build this program the way we want to build it.
I know this season could be taxing as well for your guys and yourself. It sounds like you're building the momentum that you want with pictures and whatnot, the analytics on things, but just in the everyday getting out on the court, how much energy do you see out of this team?
Well, it starts with me. I love what I do. I worked construction for 2 summers. Like, I'd much rather do this, even as challenging as this has been. And that's I demand that out of everybody in this program. Like, this is, fun is doing something that you're passionate about, even if it is challenging. And we want to earn something here. We'd have it no other way. Nobody's going to feel bad for the University of Tulsa. Nobody's going to give us anything, and we've got to go out and earn it. And we're going to go out and earn it on the practice floor every day. And our guys know that their practice performance will lead to future game success and future game opportunities. If a guy is not performing as well in practice and somebody's performing better, well, that other person gets to play. So we're going to keep competing every day. I know that's the way that I'm wired, our staff is wired, and our team is getting wired as well.
I'm kind of cherry picking, so this is probably an unfair question, but just kind of rolling through games, and 5 or less, you guys haven't won one. You've won a game by 6 and 7, so like I said, it's cherry picking. But late game scenarios, I know we had some late game scenarios up at Wichita State, and you probably answered some questions in the post game about it. But how have you seen this team maybe develop, or what are you trying to tweak in some of those late game, minute or less, 90 seconds left on the clock type situations where some of these games are really decided? Like I said, I think there's a handful that decide by 4 points, and that's just a possession here or there. So
yeah. Late
game scenarios, is that something that you're seeing mold as the season progresses?
Yeah, it's something we absolutely have to improve, TJ. I mean, told our team, and I always believe that one of the reasons I love numbers so much is you really can't hide from them. We're up 8 with 9.5 minutes to go, and we scored just under 1 point per possession the rest of the game. And because I think players will always look at, and we'll look at too, our offensive execution at the end of the game. But the fact of the matter is we defended very, very well for 31 minutes. And really those last 9 minutes, we gave up 1.67 points per possession. I mean, we're almost giving a bucket every time down, and that costs us the game. Now, some of our offensive turnovers and shot selection or getting a shot blocked, that leads to a challenging defensive possession. But we want to talk about the whole, and then we still have to figure out and get better at that resiliency and resolve when we have to have a stop. You know, we're down one. There's a 11-second shot clock differential at the end of that Wichita State game, and we choose to defend, and we get over-aggressive out of position, and we foul. And so our heart's in the right place, but we've got to be disciplined in what it is that we need to do as a unit. Not one person is going to be able to do this for us, and that's both on offense and defense.
Both you guys, scoring has been an issue with SMU as well. When you look at this matchup, kind of just break it down for me what you guys got to do to get the win against them.
Well, they didn't have a hard time scoring the first time we played them, and that, you know, was one of those games. And I know that there's an old coach is saying that there's like 3 games a year where you can't miss. There's 3 games a year that the other team can't miss. It's the other games that you got to figure out, really. And we can't let them have one of those moments again against us. We've got to make them miss, and that's also not giving them easy baskets. We got to take care of this basketball. Our mission's really the same, and we got to win this turnover margin. We've had some. We've got to have more. And then we've got to limit their easy baskets. We're giving up way too many baskets right around in the box area, right around the paint. And if we can do that and do it without fouling, I think we can be in good shape.
You mentioned, I think you said it was after this past game, a direct film session. What is a direct film session?
Well, we've had a number of direct film sessions, I guess. You know, I like to ask a lot of questions. I think sometimes you can show things, and we try to teach our guys on how to watch video like a coach or a great player, and because the casual eye will just follow the basketball and what it is that we're looking at when we watch this. So I'll ask a lot of questions of guys directly and try to get responses. And so, one, it puts guys on alert that they need to be paying attention because they could be called on. But then second, that we really got to understand what's going on here. So, you know, being direct is really, I think, just asking questions. It's not one other than a learning environment, but being very direct and making sure that we're all telling truths, and sometimes that can be challenging.
Yeah, that's where I was going. So it wasn't so much a screaming at session; it's more of just an open and honest conversation about what's happening.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times that's even more challenging. I think, you know, I think about played 2 years for Bo Ryan, and I'll never forget. And we do it too. We'd list from 1 to 10, and then you just play it and say, hey, what happened on this play? And you needed to be right, because then you could be called on, and it's just, you didn't want to be embarrassed that way, and you want to make sure you know your stuff. And so I think sometimes yelling and screaming, guys just, you know, it's like taking your medicine. No, we want to learn. This is about learning. This is about growing. This is about helping each guy become the best version of them.
Any more questions, guys? All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.